everyone. You're watching News Epicenter with me, Marya Shakil. Homemakers are the backbone of the Indian household, playing a critical role in holding homes together and bringing up children. All of us can attest to the role homemakers have had in building our lives, and most of us can vouch that they have done heavy lifting, and all that heavy lifting is being done by women. 64% of women in urban India are busy with housework, while the figure is less than that in rural India, with 60% women busy with housework. All over India, 92% of women are involved in domestic activities versus just 23% of men, even though now more women are entering the workforce and more men are playing larger domestic roles. All of this work is unpaid and there are no days off. Ahead of the Tamil Nadu elections, Kamal Hassan has made the political pitch, saying that if his party comes to power, homemakers will be paid salaries, which has sparked a debate with lawmakers like Congress MP Shashi Tharoor, who is backing the plan, while actor Kangana Ranaut also took to Twitter opposing the idea, saying there should not be a price tag on that job. Now, back in 2012, the Women and Child Development Ministry mulled a proposal legally mandating that a portion of the bread earner's salary be granted to the homemaker. But that proposal never took shape. It is a complicated pitch. How will governments regulate and track the work of homemakers? Can the term homemaker be legally defined? Can levels of wages be applied to homemakers? And what is the list of duties to define a homemaker? But the fact remains that it is unpaid work. Majority of it is done by women, and financially empowering them will only bolster the household and make them socially mobile. On the other hand, formalization of this area can even strike at the heart of the idea of family as a social unit. Navigating this terrain in the Indian context is tough, but should lawmakers take a look at it, make a start? So the question that I'm asking on the show this evening is, should homemakers get salaries? Joining me on the show, Meghna Pant, who is an author, Renu Kohli is an economist. We'll be joined by Karna Nandi, a lawyer, and Tara Kaushal, an author, in just a few minutes. Ms. Kohli, I'm going to begin with you. How can a homemaker's contribution be quantified, and who pays for her work?
Yeah, as an economist and as also a person who's been associated with the Women's 20 of the G20 group, and also the targets, looking at this target set by the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, number 5, I would advocate measuring and valuing the contribution of women in unpaid care work and domestic work. Now, that's been a long-standing goal of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So it's better for policymakers to advocate that. The reason is that it is recognized, it's measured and valued, and it's a way of sensitizing gender equality and mainstreaming gender issues, rather than posing the question in terms of whether they ought to be paid and who ought to be paid. But I think if it figures in and measured and becomes part of the national accounts, that's a much better way of recognizing and assigning a value to women's unpaid contributions in domestic work.
But then why should it be on the state? Why should the salaries be given from the account of taxpayers' money?
Let me put it this way. If I have to answer that question, I would not really ask that question, because that's why I said, I would frame the question differently. And because I do care about mainstreaming gender equality. If the state were to pay everybody and all the women, we would like to have, let's extend this hypothetically, you would have full employment of women. And I don't think we all want that. We want very much that value to be recognized and measured as part of GDP. That is your national accounts, because that is the value of output of goods and services. And these are household goods and services that are produced and served and contributed, although they do not come into the market. What is measured in GDP in national accounts is only the marketable goods and services. So what would happen is that it would mean that all women are employed, and therefore the labor force participation of women, which is in the formal sector, would just not come about. So that would be one of the consequences. So which is why I said that the question itself needs to be asked and put forward differently, according to me.
Okay, okay, Meghna, come in on this. There is that presumption and also the burden of expectation here that women perform household work out of love and care. And can it be seen as an unpaid labor?
I think, Marya, we need to recognize one thing. This is a very emotive issue, right? It's all about women getting their due. That is the acknowledgement, the recognition, the value that is assigned to something that is unseen so far, that's tireless and thankless. And I think that's what the core of this entire issue is. The fact is that in India, for a lot of people, this will not make sense unless I put some facts forward. We have 56% of 51% of women who graduate, but only 24% of these women enter the workforce, and only 9% of them end up in the mid to senior level management positions. These are alarming numbers, and it gets even more alarming because women earn 35% less in India than men do, which is not shocking in itself. It's all across the globe. But across the globe, 16% is the normal figure. So that's 35% versus 16%. That's a global figure, and it gets even worse because during economic calamities like say demonetization or even the lockdown, 13% fewer women were employed versus 2% fewer men. There was a $216 billion loss to the economy, according to the Oxfam, and 8% was shaved off the GDP because women did not enter the workforce. So we have to understand the context of how women play a role
No,
in the economic development
I
of
would
our
also
country.
make this argument then, Meghna, that if she is a caregiver, so are men now. Because of greater participation of women at the workforce, we are also seeing that men and women tend to share responsibilities in household work. And
You know,
they also take care of, responsibilities towards children as well.
And Maria, I would absolutely, in the best case scenario, this would be the case across every single household in our country. But unfortunately, it's not. In fact, there's a study by the OECD that says that men in India, in particular, spend 4.5 hours more during the day. I'm not talking during the week. Every single day, they spend 4.5 hours more in rest and relaxation than women do. And this is the exact time that women are doing housework. So we may come from a place of privilege or we may have seen more equality, but the fact remains that across the wider India, men are still not contributing as much to
Okay.
housework as they can. And instead, we're seeing women have entered the workforce in a much larger way, but the contribution of men has still been
Before I
abysmally low. And this
before I
also,
bring
by the
in
way,
Karna Nandi, I'll go to Renu Kohli. Renu, can this salary be termed as empowerment? Renu Kohli, if you're hearing me. Okay, we'll try and fix that connection with Renu Kohli. Coming on this, Karna, will this not make all relationships transactional and strike at the very basis of what we see in India as, at the heart of family, the very idea of family is that of a unit?
What do we mean by transactional relationships? When I am putting in most of the work and not getting any of the money, I can't see how the idea of the transactional and the elevating of wives and mothers' contribution to the household without
So, is
actually
the salary
providing very
about
much support.
elevation?
No, please hear me out. I understand that you're asking these questions because these are questions that people will have, right? But here's the thing, Marya, that mothers and wives and even daughter-in-laws mostly in our society, but also daughters, roles in our homes are elevated in a particular way, right? There's a sort of there's a mother fetish even in our country, that we people sort of say that mothers do so much and meri maa sab kuch hai, etc., right? But when it comes to making sure that your mother is not exhausted every day doing housework and doesn't just have ghar ka kharcha that is coming in drips, in little drips, and she only has sort of limited decision making, that if she wants to buy something for herself, or when she wants to make sure that she is in the relationship and in the family out of choice and not out of compulsion. Because let us remember, when you have to be in a particular place, you are bonded to it, and it is a kind of form of bonded labor if you don't have the option to leave, right? Then we forget what it actually means to be a human being that we love and support,
No,
right?
but
So
Karina,
therefore, just hear
my
me out.
my idea is
Yeah.
that in India the idea of family is different, and of course this is one of the oldest feminist debate that is going on. Shouldn't we be talking about equal work for equal pay? Because women are stepping out of their homes, they are getting jobs, they are coming back home into their homes and ensuring that the male or their husbands become equal participant in running the homes.
So let us now unpackage that idea. Are women really stepping out of the house? In the 1990s, the labor workforce participation rate for women were working at a rate of about 35%, right? Now that rate has gone down to about 25%. 25%. This is around the figure in Saudi Arabia, Marya. This is not loose talk. Look it up. It's about the same figure in Saudi Arabia. Do you know what the figure in Delhi is? Just take a guess. What percentage of women work in Delhi?
Okay.
No, just take a wild guess.
Okay, 60 to 70%, I would say.
11%.
Okay, that's shocking.
11%. So it's much less. Why does this happen? Why do so few women work in our polity? Why so few women citizens at the workforce?
Okay,
We can't just
let me
extrapolate
bring in
for ourselves.
others now. Brinda
Please let
Adige.
me finish.
Okay,
Let me just finish
okay,
my
go
point.
ahead.
It's not done. It's because, in part, that they're expected to carry the entire burden at home. And the entire burden at home is not compensated or shared. They don't get money for it. They don't get any say. They don't get enough of a say in the household for it. And they don't gain any power from it. Right? I mean, there's other kinds of power, but it's not the same kind. And it's not the same sort of transferability of resources and power.
Okay,
And so, we've
let
got
me
to
bring in
clear
others
that.
now. Yes,
Mind here, there's
Brinda
a huge.
Adige, my understanding here is that why should state interfere in the matters of family? Shouldn't it be left within the family?
Uh, if we continue saying that everything should be left in the family and within the family, the entire issue of domestic violence also will not come up, because this is what women have been grappling with. It has taken us so many years to even reach this stage where you are debating on national television whether household chores must have a value added to it in a monetary term. And today we are talking about the SDGs and we are talking about gender equality. We've not even reached equity. So, if you leave it to the families, do you think there would ever be this kind of a recognition that would be given? Because we romanticize this entire chore that a woman has to do in the family. And continuing in this framework, we refuse to accept that this work that is being done, this is labor and this needs to be compensated. I think there can be no salary attached to it, because the work that is being done is not done just as a job. It is done with a lot of love, care, and nurturing. But compensation, I think,
No.
cannot be left up only to the family.
Okay, so you are saying that the state should pay. I'm going to come back to you, Renu Kohli. Renu Kohli, I'm trying to understand, can this salary be termed as empowerment? How do you define this? What is the notional idea of a homemaker's work?
See, I already spoke my views on the subject, and I continue to stress and emphasize that the correct way or the correct question to be asked is, Should this unpaid care and domestic work of women all over the world, not just in India, be recognized and measured and valued? And I agree with that, yes. According to me, the appropriate way to do it is to measure it and make it a part of the national accounts, a contribution to GDP. As far as the state payment is concerned, there are many, many issues that arise, including that of, immediately your employment jumps up. And well, then the state can sit back and say everybody's being paid. But we don't want that. We want a value to be assigned to that so that more women can actually, it mainstreams women and gender sensitivity and equality itself into the GDP. And it provides a very good a reflection of their abilities to earn what they could if they moved out of their house and worked outside. It also gives a dignity and of labor to the contributions that make. So that's what I have to say on the
Okay,
subject.
okay, fine enough. I will expand it a little more, and I will say that we had put out a survey. In fact, we asked this question on Twitter for a poll, and the response that came was, I'm going to ask my producer to put that on our television screens, that 64.1% said no. Should states pay a monthly wage to homemakers? 64.1% actually said no. Geeta Bhatt, cooking, cleaning, planning, managing of the house, shopping, tutoring kids, everything is there. Can a compensation be seen as appreciation of a work?
Well, Marya, well, if you ask me, I personally feel that this will be disrespectful to the kind of work, the kind of love. In fact, I agree with Brindaji when she says that the amount of work that the homemakers are doing at home, whether it is you, me, or all the women, the kind of work that we are doing at our homes is not something. It cannot be valued in terms of some materialistic asset. But at the same time, the fact is that most of the societies in the world have been patriarchal, and so has been ours. And there are times when the kind of work that women do at home, they do not get the kind of acknowledgement or the kind of respect that needs to be given to it. But at the same time, if we are trying to say that, and the kind of work that you do, there are at times people, economists who are saying that this need to be included in terms of when we are talking in terms of calculation of GDP. The kind of work women do at home, it has no no value attached to it while calculating our GDP. But at the same time, this is something which, when both men and women, nature has made us different. So we at the first point need to acknowledge that we are different. Nature has made us different, and when we take certain responsibilities with the changing times in the last 70 years, the kind of role women have played, the kind of opportunities women have got, whether in the house or outside the house, they have changed tremendously. Yes, we still have to walk a lot. It is not that in terms of gender parity, we can say that in the society men and women are given an equal parity.
Okay.
But trying to monetize it, trying to monetize the amount of work women are doing at home is something, it is going to just disrupt the family structure.
So coming on this, Karuna, I'm looking at what the Supreme Court has said in recent judgment. Of course, it was to do with Motor Accident Claims Tribunal, which was in that context. This was a 3-judge bench. And it talks about a housemaker often prepares food and talks about various roles that she does. And then it goes on to say that a step towards the constitutional vision of social equality and ensuring dignity of life to all individuals. Will it be about this finally, or do you think it can be about tokenism, mere tokenism?
Not necessarily. I think that when you compensate a family for the motor accident of a woman, then that's something that tends a lot of compensation figures in general, particularly would tend to be pegged on that, right? So I think it's an important inquiry. I'm going to address two things that were said by previous panelists that went unquestioned, and then I'm going to just very briefly say what I think the solutions are. Firstly, we had Renuka ji speak of the contribution of women's work into national income, GDP. It's not going to make any difference whatsoever to the individual woman, right? It's an interesting idea, but I think that at the macro level, it's important, it's interesting. Economists have been saying that for years. It's going to make zero difference to the life of the individual homemaker. Secondly, what Geeta ji was just saying was that men and women are different, right? Now, that's only true when that there are tendencies. So if you say women are less strong than men, let's be clear that, Karna Maleshwari is going to be stronger than a hell of a lot of men I know. Okay?
Okay.
So when we put women and men in these particular boxes, we're just completely not understanding reality.
Okay.
The way it actually works is that women and men have various different characteristics. There are some characteristics that tend to be more, um, in more male and more female, and also it's a continuum, right? Like I may be more male in court and I may be more female in the home, and so these tags of male and female also I think at some point just have to go. I don't think they make a lot of sense.
Okay.
When it comes to household contribution,
Okay.
are we saying that women are built for housework? Men do about, in Indian men, there's one study saying that they do 13 minutes of housework every day. 13 minutes. Are men constructed biologically to watch television? I mean, so frankly, I just think
Okay.
that, we can't say, when we get into this, that it becomes a problem. Look, I do think that we can't just have it for women, because then what we say is that, okay, look, woman, your place is in the home and we're going to give you a salary. And I agree with everyone that a salary is insulting. Nobody is saying that the love can be compensated. One is saying that the work, the jhadu pocha, that comes from the love, that has an economic value. So there are two solutions here. One, I think that there should be a direct cash transfer to all women,
So who does
right?
that?
There
The
are
husband
countries.
does it? The breadwinner of the family does it?
No, the state. A direct cash transfer
By
actually to
the
all
vir-
women. Because
by
what
the
did we do
virtue of
during the
being born as
pandemic?
a woman. I mean, how is that logical, Karuna?
If you look at, see, when you look at women's workforce participation, right? The fact that it's gone down. There's a huge, not just a double bind, there's a kind of multiple bind that surrounds all women, and it's much worse for Dalit women, it's much worse for disabled women,
Yes.
etc. Right? So women like you and me will be on a different end of the spectrum. However, it also affects privileged women. Let's be clear about that. So now, in such a situation, I think that low income women having a direct cash transfer for low income women, I think, could be really significant.
Fine.
But also, I think that there should be a automatic claim over half of the property and the salary that is
Okay.
brought in
Fine.
after
A
the
quick
marriage
response from you now,
of the
Renu,
husband,
to what
of the
Karuna
Yeah,
says,
married.
yeah,
that it may be a
yes,
great idea, but it's
yes.
not a practical idea.
No, it's
Yeah,
perfectly
not at all.
practical.
I mean, I do not see, first of all, we have to be very careful about giving cash transfers because they can both incentivize, they would certainly not incentivize or enhance labor force participation of women, which is exactly what the outcome that we want. And we would
Not just
want
to
to avoid that.
housewives. I was
Number
proposing
two,
cash transfers to all low income women.
there are resources. And number
Clarify.
three, in countries, in a country like India, where subsidies are all over the place and populism is rising by the day over the years, we certainly don't want this. I would certainly not advocate this at all
Okay.
because it's amenable to huge, enormous political and populist abuse. So as a compensation for not being part of the labor force and staying at home are two different things altogether, and they cannot be evaluated on the same plane. And this is not a solution that to the problem I had. I'm extremely empathetic to the fact that all of us, including me, we end up by default. And sorry, it's not always love and all. It's a lot of times it's just default.
Yes.
Default tasks fall onto women. we end up being primary caregivers. We end up being the household housekeepers, even though we may have very, high-flying professionals in our own
You may
right.
be accomplished. When it comes to homes,
I'm
you have to run
completely
it.
empathetic to all that, but at the same time, to bring in the state for payments because we are women
Yes.
on the basis of something, I don't think there is an equivalence there.
Yes,
And
yeah, that again is about incentivizing staying at home, and that becomes a
No,
problematic
that's
idea
not what
again.
I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm coming
Just
to you.
Marya and
Let me
Renuka ji,
take
if I may
quick
just
reaction
clarify.
from everybody now, because I've come to the end of this debate and I have just 1.5 minutes. Quick, 20 seconds to you, Meghna, and then I'll give the final words to
I think,
Brinda.
Marya, I just want to quickly say one last thing in point of what's been discussed. You mentioned in 2012, the WCD considered
Yes.
husbands paying, but that does nothing for income creation, the economy, or collective responsibility. I think the issue at hand is women would feel paid if they are recognized. They're not demeaned. They're running families. They're running societies. They're therefore running countries. Give them a small card. Give them a day off. A simple thank you will do. And please keep in mind that countries like the Philippines, which have introduced payment to housewives, there are also countries like the UK, which have allocated
There are
carers
better
fund, which
ways
give
of
tax
perhaps
credit
recognizing
to
a housemaker, a homemaker, and a
exactly. Or
a
like the UK,
caregiver's work.
you
Geeta
can give a
Bhatt,
carers fund,
20
twin
seconds.
carers fund, where you get tax credit.
Maria,
Yes.
I
There
want
are
to say is that
solutions.
first of all, when I said that men and women are different. Now, if we conclude that when men and women are different and nature has made us different, does not mean that women are weak. And I think that is where the problem lies. That we ourselves, or we, the mindset is that we feel there is an feeling of inferiority
Okay,
among
Brinda
us.
Dige, 20
That
seconds.
which is not required.
Okay.
And
Yes.
also to come to the point that
Yes.
it is important that
Brinda,
we
quickly.
need to
Okay,
sensitize.
I have to end this debate.
sorry,
Yes.
Sensitivity that
but
needs
I'd
to
like
grow
20
in the
seconds,
society,
Brinda, please.
Yes.
and acknowledge the
I
amount
agree
of
with
work
Karuna that a value has to be added to the work that is being done, and the state must compensate. Otherwise, where will it get its people to come out and work? And like we already mentioned, women are not coming out into the labor
No,
force.
but why should
And when we
women,
are talking of housework, we are
by
talking
virtue of
work.
being at home, be paid by the state? That is also the larger question. And why should this idea be striking at the very basis of Indian society, which is a family? That's all from me. Thank you so much, Meghna, Karuna, Renu, Brinda Dige, and Geeta Bhatt. Please continue this discussion on news18.com. That's all from me. Thanks so much.